All right. Can people hear me? All right. Hey, so thanks so much for Hack VC to organize this event. Thanks, Ed. Um, okay, so good. Let's test this out. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm a co-founder of the Babylon project. So the protocol that we're building at Babylon is Bitcoin staking. And Bitcoin staking is always a weird sounding concept because everybody knows that Bitcoin is proof of work. But staking is, of course, associated with proof of stake. So how can you put these two words together? So I'm hearing myself later than I talk. Very interesting. Okay, never tried that before. Okay, so yeah, so the driving of the current bull market is, of course, the Bitcoin momentum. So we can see that the prices of Bitcoin is probably the most fast-rising asset across all classes. And so we are working on Bitcoin, so we're very excited about that. So what we always been saying that Bitcoin is digital gold, okay? Now, in the past few months, since the Bitcoin ETF have been issued, I think this philosophical concept is realized in the shift of gold ETF to Bitcoin ETF. So this is really exciting to see this concept of Bitcoin as a digital gold realizing. Now, however, things look really good, but there are some current Bitcoin issues. And let me point out two of them. Okay, so the first issue is that in every 4 years, the Bitcoin reward, which is the number of Bitcoin that miners earn by mining one block, is reduced by half. And this is defined in the protocol. Basically, nobody can change that. So it's like Olympics. We know that every 4 years, there's an Olympics. Bitcoin halving is like that. So every 4 years, Bitcoin is halved, the block reward. And hey, when is the next halving happening? Do people know? Next week. Is it next week already? Wow, time flies. Next 2 weeks, probably. Okay, so yeah, so next 2 weeks, we'll see the Bitcoin reward halving. So, all right, so what's the implication of Bitcoin reward halving? Is that the miners' income will be significantly reduced. If miners' income are significantly reduced, then fewer miners may mine to secure the Bitcoin network. And so this is kind of a problem, and it's a long-term problem because 4 years later, it will be further halved and so forth. So this is the so-called security budget problem of Bitcoin. That is, miners may have reduced incentive to mine over time. And therefore, less miners mine, less security budget. So that's number one. Now, in fact, this concept of Bitcoin reward being reduced is not only pertaining to the miners, but in general, the Bitcoin has very little yield opportunity. So we've been talking to a lot of Bitcoin holders because our project is built on Bitcoin. And the first question we asked Bitcoin holders is, hey, what do you do with your Bitcoins? Okay, so the typical answer is, well, I don't know. The Bitcoin just sit on my wallet and earn nothing. And we're just hoping that the price of Bitcoin will keep on going up. That's it. So compared to other digital assets, like Ethereum, for example, Bitcoin has really very little yield. And this chart shows the 1% of Bitcoin, which is in wrapped Bitcoin asset. And first observation is that, hey, this is only 1% of the Bitcoin. So what is wrapped Bitcoin? Wrapped Bitcoin is basically a way to bridge the Bitcoin from Bitcoin chain which has very little economic activity, and bridge it to, say, Ethereum, where there are more economic activities for which the Bitcoin can participate. So you can see that even within this 1%, which is a very low percentage of Bitcoin, which is in wrapped Bitcoin, the yield opportunity, the yield rate is very low. And so these are the problems that have, which is the Bitcoin miners are earning less. In general, the Bitcoin holders have very low yield. Now, so basically, our project you can think of is to find new and interesting use cases for Bitcoin which can earn yield opportunity. All right. Okay, so here's the solution, or one solution, of this problem of increasing yield opportunity use case for Bitcoin. So if you look around, now you may also ask the question, which is I forgot to mention, that, well, in general, why is the yield opportunity so low for Bitcoin? One reason, not the only reason, is that Bitcoin holders tend to be rather conservative. Look, if you have gold, you don't want to mess around with the gold, okay? So therefore, when we start thinking about use case of Bitcoin, we want to find not any arbitrary use case like lending Bitcoin and so forth, but very, very low risk use cases, okay? And if you look around the crypto ecosystem, not just Bitcoin, crypto ecosystem, you will find that the lowest risk use case, which earn yield, is actually staking, okay? So if you think about staking on Ethereum, for example, you can think of staking is like an analogy to TradFi would be something like a risk-free investment. That is, you stake, very low risk of losing the asset, but yet you still earn a decent level of yield. And this staking market in the past few years have grown to be huge, okay? So as of the quarter, you see that we have about 150 billion staked assets and a significant amount of staking reward, and the yield is actually quite high. So this kind of a risk-free staking yield is actually quite high. Now, unfortunately for Bitcoiners, they don't have access to this market. Okay, why do Bitcoiners do not have access to this staking market? Why? Well, because Bitcoin is not a proof-of-stake chain, okay? So if you take Bitcoin, you do not have this basic use case which proof-of-stake asset have, which is to stake and provide security to your own chain, okay? Bitcoin is proof of work. It's not secured by its asset. So what we invented, this Bitcoin staking protocol, is really just to make these two observations, which is, hey, Bitcoins do not have access to this market. Bitcoin have low or no yield. Why not try to connect Bitcoin to this staking market? And as a result, okay, so we asked this question, what about let all Bitcoiners access this market? And the result is our protocol called Bitcoin staking. Now, this is a bit weird, okay? I just told you that Bitcoin is proof of work, okay? I want to give this use case of staking to Bitcoin, all right? How does that work? Am I going to change Bitcoin from proof of work to proof of stake? Okay, look, we're only a small startup. Now, we have very generous funding from Hack VC last round. But it's not quite, and now Hack VC is a very powerful VC, but it's still not powerful enough for us to go and change Bitcoin from proof of work to proof of stake. So if I had done that pitch to Ed a few months ago, I'm not so sure I'm going to get funding from Hack VC. So, therefore, we're not trying to change Bitcoin itself. In fact, our protocol makes no change whatsoever to the Bitcoin chain. But what we do is the following, okay? So what we do is to invent a protocol called Bitcoin staking, which allows any Bitcoin holders, any holders which have Bitcoin, to stake and provide security to any proof of stake chains. In fact, more broadly, any systems which require proof of stake security or will benefit from proof of stake security. So for example, you can do staking and combine it with rollups. You can get proof of stake level security on rollup as well. And we can do that too. Okay, so this diagram is the essence of this talk. Okay? So let's digest this diagram, all right? So on the left-hand side, we have the Bitcoin holders. They're the ones like you and me who hold these Bitcoins on the wallet, hardware wallet, etc., with almost no yield. On the right-hand side are the proof of stake chains, okay? Now, proof of stake chain, so to understand this concept of Bitcoiners providing security proof of stake chain, one needs to break down this diagram in several ways. Now, and one actually has to dispel with some existing biases that come from this very short history of proof of stake, okay? So the very short history of proof of stake is following. You build a new layer 1, okay? Many years ago it was Ethereum. Then more recently, there are chains like Solana, Stray, Aptos, many other chains, proof of stake. What do you do, right? You have a native asset associated with that chain, and you use that native asset to secure that chain, among potentially, hopefully, other use cases of the native asset. Now, what is staking? If you look at more generally what is staking, staking is really a way of putting capital as collateralization to ensure good behavior of the validators, the nodes that run the network. You know, just like if we go to an Airbnb, you have to pay a deposit to ensure that you don't trash the Airbnb when you leave it. Similarly here, staking is to provide collateral to make sure that the validators have good behavior. Okay, so if you think about it this way, then in some sense, the capital that you put in does not necessarily have to denominate it in the native asset, okay? Because any asset which has value, it can be a collateral, in a sense that if bad behavior is penalized by removing this collateral, then the goal of security is achieved. Okay? So what we are trying to propose here is, in some sense, a more broader view of what proof of stake means. This is that proof of stake chain is any chain which can be secure by capital, whether the capital is a native asset, or the capital is a foreign asset, or the capital is a mix between the native asset and foreign asset, or the capital can be a mix of a native asset and multiple, perhaps, foreign asset. Okay? So this is a very general concept, and if you think about proof of stake in this general concept, then the proposal here and the protocol here is to use Bitcoin as that foreign asset. Now, Bitcoin is actually a pretty natural choice for a staking asset. One reason is because if you want a good staking asset, you would think that you want that asset to have low volatility. Because if it has high volatility, then the security kind of drops and rises very rapidly, which is undesirable. And in some sense, many native assets, especially early on, is very volatile. Bitcoin relatively is much less volatile, number one. Number two, Bitcoin is the largest by far crypto asset out there. More than 1 trillion worth of Bitcoin. Now, with such a large supply, then you would imagine that the cost of the capital can be reduced as well. So therefore, you could imagine that the proof-of-stake chain can reduce the cost of security by giving a relatively low yield compared to the native asset to provide security. And the cost is lower, the volatility is lower, so it is an advantage for a lot of these proof-of-stake chain. From the point of view of the Bitcoin holder, they're just happy to get some level of yield in a nearly risk-free manner. So I propose that this picture of putting these two things together actually is, if you think about it, after a while, maybe a few months, then it becomes sensible. Okay, now, how to do it? Okay, so I'm going to spend 1 or 2 minutes talking about how to do it. Now, one way you can think of doing it is to take your Bitcoin and bridge it to one of these proof-of-stake chain and then provide staking, okay? Now, I propose that this is not a good solution. Okay, why is this not a good solution? Because if you think about bridges, they're the kind of the weakest link of the crypto ecosystem. Many attacks happens on bridges. Particularly for Bitcoin, secure bridges are extremely hard to build. And so bridging is something that Bitcoiners, I would say, a bridge too far, perhaps, to use, okay? And so our solution does not require any bridging. In fact, our solution is a completely trustless solution. The Bitcoiners can hold on to their Bitcoin, never swap it for any wrap asset, keep it on the Bitcoin chain, lock it up on the Bitcoin chain, and in the meantime, provide security to the proof-of-stake chain. And our technology, the core of our technology, is to be able to trustlessly slash this collateral if the validators that the staker supports does a bad behavior. So that is the core technology that makes this happen. All this is done in a trustless manner. You know, we are working towards a decentralized world. We want to get rid of all these central actors, so our protocol is working towards this vision that, as someone says, what do you call it? In math, we trust. I saw a T-shirt of that somewhere the other day. Yes, in cryptography, we trust. Okay, so that's basically the core idea. And so this is the system that we're trying to build towards. Babylon, in addition to protocol, it is basically a coordination layer between all these proof-of-stake chains on the one hand, and supply of Bitcoin from different places on the other hand, okay? In addition to proof-of-stake chain, existing proof-of-stake ecosystem, one market that is emerging only in the past few months are actually Bitcoin layer 2s. Bitcoin layer 2s, we're working with a lot of them to provide Bitcoin staking security. So recently, there has been quite a lot of interest in our protocol, and we have struck up quite a few partnerships and collaboration to build up this Bitcoin ecosystem. Just to give some examples of partnership, a few months ago, we announced this partnership with the Cosmos Hub. So Cosmos Hub is the biggest, chain, the core chain in the Cosmos ecosystem. They are actually quite interested in providing security, not only to itself, but to other Cosmos chains. And Babylon is partnering with the Cosmos Hub to allow it to obtain Bitcoin staking security in addition to security from Atom. So this is an example of a hybrid system where you have both native asset, Atom in this case, and Bitcoin asset, and different chains can choose different weighting between these two assets. Another collaboration which we've been working very closely is in the roll-up direction with Outlayer. I believe Outlayer is actually one of the co-sponsors of this event. So that's why we include this slide here to make sure that in addition to Hack VC, we pay appropriate respect. With Outlayer, we are developing all kinds of roll-up solutions to use Bitcoin staking. One thing about roll-ups is that although roll-ups is supposed to get full security from the main chain, be it Ethereum or Bitcoin, but current day roll-up, a lot of trust is actually on the centralized sequencer, okay? And Bitcoin staking can actually be used to make this crypto economic secure on the sequencer as opposed to just trusting the sequencer. And that is one direction we're working with. All right. So yeah, as we mentioned, there has been a lot of projects working with us to try to build out this Babylon ecosystems. These include Bitcoin Layer 2, wallets and custodial, DeFi projects, liquid staking and liquid restaking, roll-up infrastructure, the Cosmos ecosystem. So we've been really working hard to build this Babylon ecosystems. So in terms of the technology development, about a month ago, we rolled out the Bitcoin staking testnet, the first trustless Bitcoin staking testnet. And the response has been overwhelming. We gave out 100,000 NFTs to the first 100,000 stakers on this testnet, and we did it within 48 hours. So there's a lot of interest in the project. We're quite excited about that. And very important part of any proof of stake protocol or any protocol involves proof of stake are the validators. And we have many leading validators that run the Babylon chain to receive the Bitcoin staking and secure the Babylon chain. And very important is that in addition to the big validators like P2P or Figment or Instone, Chorus One, etc., we also have a lot of validators who are themselves also Bitcoin miners. Now, a very natural thing for Bitcoin miners to actually benefit from this protocol is to stake their Bitcoin and also run a node to receive staking. So it's a completely trustless protocol. Doesn't have to trust anyone. You know, in delegated proof of stake system, the staker typically has to at least have some level of trust to the node that runs the protocol. Because if the node does bad thing, the staker gets slashed. In a system where the Bitcoin miners run their own nodes, there's no need to trust anyone else. So this is a rather natural configuration. So we have miners like Galaxy Digital Foundry running nodes as well. Great. All right. So yeah, coming to the end of the talk, we rolled a Bitcoin staking testnet in February. Moving on in Q2, we'll be launching our mainnet phase 1. So the Bitcoin staking testnet has the staking, the Babylon chain, which is the first chain that will receive Bitcoin staking. In mainnet phase 1, we will be focusing on the staking part, so people lock up the stake. And in phase 2, we will launch with the Babylon chain and potentially with a few other chains that we are integrating on the testnet right now. Other projects we work on are Bitcoin data availability and Bitcoin liquidity, but those are more down the road. Okay. Yeah, so if you're interested in our project, please connect with us on Twitter and on our website. Thank you very much.